If you reach retirement with the wrong number in your head, the consequences can follow you for decades. Because this is not just about whether you stop working at 60, 65, or 70. It is about whether your money can carry your lifestyle, your independence, your health care, your housing, and your peace of mind for the rest of your life, without forcing you into painful compromises later. That is why the question of how much money you need to retire is one of the most important financial questions you will ever answer, and it deserves far more than a lazy rule of thumb tossed around at dinner parties or repeated in headlines. Some people are told they need $1 million. Others hear $1.5 million, $2 million, or some other dramatic figure designed to sound universal. But retirement planning does not work that way. There is no single number that fits everyone, because every person retires at a different age, spends differently, lives differently, and receives income from different places. Some people have pensions, some do not. Some have rental income. Some have investment portfolios. Some have government benefits. Some have paid off homes. And some are still carrying debt into retirement. That means the real answer is personal. And while it does take a bit of work to get there, it is not nearly as complicated as many people fear. In fact, once you understand the framework, you can approach the problem from several practical angles, each one giving you a clearer sense of what retirement will really require. The first step is not math. The first step is clarity. Before you can estimate how much money you need, you have to define the shape of the retirement you are planning for. When do you expect to retire? That matters because retirement is the point where employment income slows down or stops, and your savings, pensions, and benefits begin carrying more of the load. How long do you expect retirement to last? No one knows exactly how long they will live, but your best estimate matters because a 10-year retirement and a 30-year retirement are completely different financial challenges. Many planners use age 90 as a conservative planning target, not because everyone will live that long, but because running short at 88 is a far bigger problem than dying with some extra money left over. Life expectancy averages can help, but averages are not instructions. Your own health, family history, lifestyle, and level of caution all matter. Then comes the question many people struggle with most. How much income will you actually want or need each month in retirement? If you are a disciplined budgeter, this can be relatively straightforward because you already know what your lifestyle costs and which expenses may disappear once you stop working. But many people are not strict budgeters. They know roughly what they earn, roughly what they save, and roughly what they spend, but not with surgical precision. That is why simple estimation methods remain so popular. One of the best known is the 70% rule, where you take your current income and assume you will need around 70% of it in retirement. The logic is not perfect, but it is reasonable. Once you retire, certain costs may shrink or vanish, including commuting, payroll deductions, retirement savings contributions, work-related expenses, and sometimes even mortgage payments or insurance needs. So, if you currently earn $100,000 per year, you might estimate needing around $70,000 in retirement. It is not exact, but it can give you a starting point. Another approach is to start from your current expenses instead of your income. List what you spend now and subtract the expenses you do not expect to carry into retirement. That method can actually be more grounded than the 70% rule because it focuses on lifestyle rather than salary. But it still requires honest thinking. The danger in both methods is assuming retirement spending remains flat forever. In reality, many retirees go through phases. Early retirement is often more active and more expensive. People travel more, eat out more, help family more, renovate homes, and enjoy the freedom they spent decades earning. Later, spending often slows down as travel decreases, routines stabilize, and lifestyles become quieter. Then in the final years, spending can either remain moderate or rise again due to healthcare, support, and long-term care costs. So, while a flat estimate is useful for ballparking, a more realistic plan recognizes that spending may change over time. In many cases, people actually overestimate what they will need across the full length of retirement if they assume they will spend at the same level forever. But having a buffer is not a flaw. In retirement planning, extra margin is often one of the smartest gifts you can give yourself. Once you have estimated the income you want, the next step is to identify where that income will come from. This is where many people begin to see retirement differently. During your working years, income often comes from one main source, your employer or your business. In retirement, income becomes layered. You may receive CPP, OAS, workplace pension income, annuity income, rental income, investment withdrawals from RRSPs, RRIFs, TFSAs, non-registered accounts, dividends, interest, and perhaps even part-time work. The important thing is not just listing the sources, but understanding what each one contributes and when it starts. Some sources are indexed to inflation, some are taxable, some are tax-free, some are guaranteed for life, some depend on markets, some can be delayed to increase future payments, some may reduce other benefits. This is where rough math can quickly become strategic planning, because once you know how much income you want and how much you expect from outside sources, the gap between the two tells you how much your personal savings need to generate. From there, you can estimate the size of the nest egg required. One of the simplest manual approaches is the 25 times rule. Take the amount you need from your own savings each year and multiply it by 25. For example, suppose you want $60,000 a year in retirement income and you expect government benefits to cover $24,000 of that, leaving $36,000 to come from your own portfolio. Multiply $36,000 by 25 and you get $900,000. That becomes your rough retirement savings target. The beauty of this method is that it is simple and fast. The limitation is that it is only a ballpark. It does not model taxes in detail. It does not explicitly account for inflation. It does not show what happens if you retire early, live longer, spend unevenly, or change your withdrawal strategy. But for many people, it is a useful starting point because it turns a vague fear into a visible target. If you know how much income gap you need to cover, the savings number stops feeling abstract. Of course, inflation complicates everything. The dollars you need at 65 are not the same dollars you will need at 75 or 85. That is why retirement savings should not sit idle in a way that guarantees they will fall behind rising costs. Your money needs to be invested in a way that has a realistic chance of keeping pace with or outpacing inflation over time. That does not mean recklessness. It means intelligence, diversification, and aligning risk with the time horizon that still exists even after retirement begins. Many people underestimate how long their money still needs to work once they retire. If retirement lasts 25 or 30 years, your portfolio still needs growth, not just safety. Another modern tool people increasingly use is artificial intelligence. AI can be surprisingly useful for organizing your thoughts, testing assumptions, comparing scenarios, and helping you understand the language of retirement planning. You can describe your age, savings, desired retirement income, and expected benefits, and ask for a rough estimate of whether you are on track. You can ask it to compare taking CPP at 65 versus 70, to explain RRSP versus TFSA withdrawals, to estimate the impact of inflation, or to organize your assumptions into a spreadsheet-style framework. Used properly, AI can act like a thinking partner. It can help you ask better questions and structure your planning in a clearer way, but it also has real limitations. It only knows what you tell it. If your inputs are incomplete, the output can be misleading. It can sound confident when it is wrong. It can use outdated numbers, misunderstand tax details, or miss subtle interactions between different income sources and government benefits. So, AI can be excellent for brainstorming and education, but it should never be treated as a flawless substitute for proper financial analysis. You still need judgment. You still need verification. And you still need to understand enough to recognize when the answer sounds good but is actually off the mark. For people who want more than ballpark math but still prefer a do-it-yourself approach, planning software has become dramatically better. Good retirement planning software can model inflation, rates of return, tax treatment across different account types, CPP and OAS timing, spending changes in retirement phases, and even more advanced situations like corporate assets or complex cash flow structures. The advantage of software is that it allows you to test scenarios quickly. What if you retire 2 years earlier? What if you delay CPP? What if your portfolio earns less than expected? What if you downsize your home at 75? What if you spend more in your first 10 retirement years and less later? Software lets you stress test your assumptions instead of relying on a single static guess. That matters because retirement confidence rarely comes from one magic number. It comes from seeing that your plan can survive different realities. The challenge with do-it-yourself software is that it still requires interpretation. You have to enter the data correctly, understand the questions being asked, and know what decisions are worth testing. A tool can be powerful and still overwhelm someone who is not used to planning language. That does not make the tool bad. It simply means that better tools still do not eliminate the need for understanding. Then there is the professional planning approach, and this is where retirement planning moves from estimating to optimizing. A strong planner does not just tell you whether your savings target looks big enough. A strong planner helps you understand how to structure your retirement income so that you get more from what you already have and lose less to tax inefficiency, poor sequencing, or missed opportunities. The most valuable planning is interactive. Instead of receiving a static report filled with assumptions you barely understand, you explore the plan in real time. You test scenarios, see the effects immediately, and understand not just what works, but why it works. That process is powerful because retirement is rarely about one decision. It is about a sequence of decisions. When should you start CPP? When should you draw from the RRSP? How should TFSA assets be used? Should taxable accounts be drawn first or last? Does it make sense to spend more in the early active years and less later? Should you preserve home equity as a backup for long-term care? Or actively integrate it into the plan? What rate of return assumptions are reasonable? What level of spending creates confidence without being too conservative? These are not just technical questions. They directly shape lifestyle. Let us walk through a simple example. Imagine someone retiring at 65, living to 90, wanting $5,000 per month after tax, owning a mortgage-free home, expecting roughly $2,000 a month from CPP and OAS, and holding $900,000 in savings split between RRSP and TFSA accounts. On the surface, the manual math might say that $900,000 is about right, but once software or professional planning enters the picture, the analysis gets richer. Taxes are modeled. Inflation is built in. Portfolio growth assumptions are tested. Spending phases can be adjusted. Maybe $5,000 per month is enough on average, but maybe the retiree actually wants $5,500 per month in the first 10 years, $4,500 in the next 10, and $4,000 later. That one shift can make the plan both more realistic and more reassuring. Maybe delaying CPP to age 70 improves long-term security meaningfully, or maybe starting at 68 instead provides nearly the same outcome with less waiting. Maybe downsizing the home later adds a major cushion. Maybe drawing more from RRSP assets earlier helps reduce future tax pressure. Maybe the retiree can afford to spend more than originally assumed and still end with a healthy estate. These are the kinds of insights you simply do not get from generic retirement numbers repeated online. You get them from modeling real life. And that is why the best retirement planning is not really about asking, do I need $1 million? It is about asking, what combination of savings, income sources, timing choices, investment growth, spending patterns, and tax decisions will support the retirement I actually want? That is a far better question, because it reflects how retirement really works. The goal is not just to reach some headline number. The goal is to create income that is durable, flexible, tax-aware, and aligned with your life. There is also an emotional side to this that often goes unspoken. Many people are not just trying to calculate retirement. They are trying to calm themselves. They want to know whether they are safe, whether they can stop working without regret, whether they can help their children, travel a little, handle surprises, and still sleep at night. A good retirement plan answers those emotional questions through numbers, not guesswork. It gives you confidence because it shows what is likely, what is possible, and what is risky. It helps you see the trade-offs clearly before real life forces them on you. And in many cases, that clarity reveals good news. People sometimes discover they can retire earlier than they thought, or spend more freely than they feared, or protect their future simply by making better sequencing decisions rather than by saving some impossible extra amount. In other cases, they discover they are behind, but even that knowledge has value because it comes with time to adapt. Work a little longer, spend a little less, save more aggressively, delay benefits, rebalance investments, downsize later. Each adjustment matters more when it is made early. The worst outcome is not learning that you need to improve your plan. The worst outcome is drifting into retirement guided by assumptions that were never tested. So, if you are wondering how much money you need to retire, start simple, but do not stop simple. Estimate your target income. Decide on a planning age. List your future income sources. Calculate the gap your own savings must fill. Use a manual formula if you want a quick ballpark. Use AI if you want help thinking through the structure. Use good planning software if you want scenario testing. And if your situation is meaningful enough, complicated enough, or important enough to deserve precision, work through the problem with someone who can model it properly and strategically. Because retirement is too important to build around slogans. The right answer is not the same for everyone, but the right process is remarkably consistent. Define the life you want, understand the income you will have, identify the gap, test the assumptions, build in a buffer, and make decisions that keep more of your money working for you instead of leaking away unnecessarily. Done properly, retirement planning stops being a scary guessing game and becomes what it should have been all along. A clear, structured path toward freedom, confidence, and control. There are a few more issues that deserve attention if you want your retirement number to be realistic instead of merely comforting. The first is tax efficiency. Two retirees with the exact same total savings can end up with very different spending power depending on where their money is held and in what order they withdraw it. RRSP and RRIF withdrawals are taxable. TFSA withdrawals are generally tax-free. Non-registered accounts may create capital gains, dividends, or interest income with different tax treatment. Government benefits can also be affected by income levels. That means your retirement number is never just about the size of the portfolio. It is about how much net income that portfolio can reliably produce after taxes. The second issue is timing. Starting CPP earlier gives you cash flow sooner, but delaying it can increase the lifetime monthly amount. OAS timing may be flexible as well. Pension choices can involve survivor benefits, guarantees, or commuted values. These choices are not interchangeable. They shape both cash flow and resilience. The third issue is housing. Some retirees plan as if their home is untouchable, while others view it as a backup asset, a downsizing opportunity, or a future source of liquidity. Neither approach is automatically right or wrong, but ignoring home equity completely can understate your flexibility, while assuming you can access it easily without trade-offs can create false confidence. The fourth issue is sequence risk, which means poor market returns early in retirement can do disproportionate damage if you are withdrawing from your portfolio at the same time. This is why a retirement plan should not only ask whether your average return assumption is reasonable. It should also ask whether the plan can survive bad timing. Cash buffers, flexible spending, and thoughtful withdrawal sequencing can matter just as much as long-term market averages. The fifth issue is human behavior. A retirement plan that only works if you remain perfectly disciplined in all conditions is not a robust plan. Real people help children, panic during downturns, overspend in happy years, underspend in fearful years, and change their minds. Good planning leaves room for humanity. It also helps couples think clearly about what happens if one spouse dies earlier, if one person needs care, or if income sources change. In other words, retirement planning is not simply a formula for replacing paychecks. It is a framework for protecting choices. And the more honestly you build that framework, the more useful your retirement number becomes, because it stops being a fantasy target and starts becoming a decision-making tool you can actually trust. One final reality check matters. Retirement planning is not a one-time calculation you do once and lock in forever. It should be reviewed whenever markets change dramatically, inflation shifts meaningfully, a spouse retires, health changes, a parent requires support, a property is sold, or your spending patterns clearly move in a new direction. A plan built at 58 may need updates at 62, 65, 70, and beyond. That is not a sign the plan failed. It is a sign your life is real. The strongest retirement plans are not rigid. They are adaptive, regularly tested, and designed to keep working even as circumstances evolve around you. Review, refine, and retest regularly so your retirement number stays useful, relevant, and dependable. Smart Pension Canada.